In today's episode, we're talking pole barn electric. Let's get into it. So in today's episode, we have a special guest. We have Jake Shufflebarger from Freedom Electric and Repairs. Did I say that right?
That is correct.
All right. So can you give me a little backstory, Jake, how you got started with Freedom Electric?
Well, when I got out of high school, back in '05, a long time from now, I went to Ivy Tech, went for the trades. I actually went for HVAC originally. We had some electrical courses down there. I came back. I did that for a little bit. Joined the military, had my college paid for.
Nice.
Took a little side venture doing some other things, but still doing side work there in the HVAC field and electrical. Then I worked for Newton County as their maintenance director. Worked my way from the bottom to the top there. We did everything there. And during that time at the county, I had a good teacher that kind of taught me the electrical field. And then I just kind of ran with it after that point. Did a semi-early retirement, invested with my retirement there with the county, and decided I was going to work for myself, hence the name Freedom. That's half the reason why I'm named Freedom Electric, is the freedom to work for myself. The other half kind of goes back to the military background there.
So you stay pretty busy?
I do. I stay very busy. It's been a crazy past few months for me in the wintertime.
Okay. What's your geography? Like, what areas do you work in?
So mainly I service the Newton County area, Jasper County, and Benton County.
And the cool thing for our viewers out there, he actually wired up the studio for us.
I did.
Yeah.
We have a lot of custom light fixtures in here and different power sources, HDMI, XLR, everything.
Yeah, we had you in here for a little bit wiring stuff up. So let's go ahead and get into this. Like I said, we're going to try to talk about certain things when a customer's thinking about building a pole barn. You know, they should be thinking about their electric. What's the very first thing, getting into the basics? Like, what's the planning on that?
The planning starts there at the very beginning stages. When you're deciding how big you want to go with your pole barn, you're going to want to know how many outlets you want to put in there. The big question, I guess, even before the outlet situation, is how big a power do you want? Do you want the 100 or do you want 200? Or you can go bigger. Traditionally, a lot of people stick with 100 to 200 for our area. It all depends on your load sizes. What are you going to put in there? Do you want a air conditioner? Do you want a welder? Do you want air compressors? How many 220 appliances are you going to run? Your lighting situation. So I guess the biggest thing is determining what do you want to do with it. If it's a barndominium, traditionally probably going to go with 200 amp because you're going to have more living appliances in there.
Yeah.
Washer, dryer, air conditioner, possibly electric stove. The new thing nowadays are EV chargers for electrical cars.
Okay.
Those take a lot of power. So I guess it falls between on what is your ultimate purpose for the building you're going to build.
So the cost breakdown of stuff, like what makes it expensive in a pole barn running electric?
The expenses starts with the service. So you have a couple of differences there. So overhead is your traditional, you're going to have your wire dangling from the service pole to your building to where you have a weatherhead sticking above the roof line or below it, depending on how high you're going there. So the customer at that point on overhead service, they actually own everything that you see out there minus the meter socket or the meter itself. They own the meter socket, the mast, weatherhead, and then they have to usually provide at least 3 foot of wire dangling so the utility can hook into it and provide you a drip loop at that point.
Okay.
It doesn't look the prettiest. It's the easiest to install because you can see everything. So it's super quick to put up. It's not a big deal. We have it there. So like I said, it is the cheapest way, and that's your most common way. The latest thing now the utility companies are wanting to do is go underground. Underground costs a little bit more because now you have 2 options how to get that power to your house from the pole. They're either going to bore it, which usually costs more, or they're going to trench it, which then tears up your yard, or if you're out in the country, then maybe not a big deal. So you have the underground. They're going to charge you by the foot on how they're going to trench it or bore it. They charge you per foot on your wire too. Now, if it's a new build, I believe there are some exceptions to that. They're going to provide you so much. They'll say, hey, we're going to give you this many feet on us, and after that, you're going to pay the difference of it.
Okay.
The advantage is it looks really nice when it's done. There's no overhead wires, which could be beneficial for your farmers when they're pulling their implements back to their barn. They don't have to worry about catching a wire with their tillers or their diskers or the chutes coming out. The advantage with underground, like I said, it is cleaner. Yes, you really don't see anything. You see a meter socket on the building and it disappears. So you don't see that power. The disadvantage is if something ever happens to it. So now you got to figure out how to fix it. Overhead, we can see it, we can fix it, easy peasy.
Yep.
Underground, you got to dig it back up and figure out where the line broke and so on. But usually utility owns that underground wire, so they're going to fix it to a certain point. Same with overhead, they're going to fix it to a certain point, but the customer is still responsible for a good chunk of that system right there. Overall, cost-wise, underground will cost you more in the long run, or not long run, but I guess in the initial startup, to whereas overhead will be a little bit cheaper, not as prettier, easier to fix, but it's still, like I said, it's not as pretty, and you still have that hazard of hanging wires and whatnot. To where underground is much cleaner, sleeker, and you don't have to really, it's one of those set it and forget it's until something happens.
Right. What are tips that you have for a customer when running power?
So the biggest step I have for everybody is prior proper planning prevents failure. That is a military
That's a
thing.
mouthful, man.
That is a tongue twister. That is a military thing that's been just ingrained in my head. So
Okay.
if we can plan everything in the beginning as much as we possibly can, it will save the customer a bunch of money because we know exactly where things are going. We're not guessing. We know the layout of the land, so we can work more efficiently at that point. The second one I would say is the new thing is LED lighting. LEDs they may cost you a little bit up front, but long term they save you on your utility bills. Another advantage with LED lighting too is your temperatures. So in a unconditioned space such as a traditional pole barn, when you turn that light switch on, you have instant light. There is no
Mhm.
2 to 3 minutes of it slowly warming up because it's cold and it's got to get up to that temperature to operate at its full brightness. Whereas your traditional metal halides or high pressure sodium bulbs or even fluorescent bulbs at that matter, they take a minute to warm up, so you don't get that instant light, so it's a little bit dark. So, for example, in my shop, it's a pole barn style building. We used a white metal wall with LED lighting to give you that maximum reflectability, so it makes it nice and bright in there. I
Mhm.
don't like working in a dark space. I won't be able to see what I'm doing. So you have to take that kind of into mind. So if you're going to use plywood or a darker material, it has a tendency to absorb the light. It doesn't have that reflecting material that a white metal wall would have, or
Yeah.
even drywall that's got a lighter color paint on it, depending on if you're doing a barndominium or a pole barn at that point.
Mhm.
We like to just make sure that you have the correct lighting for the correct material so you have that absorbing feature.
What are the requirements, like the permits and all that stuff? How does that work?
So your permits are based on your local jurisdiction. So in the 3 counties I work in, they all have kind of a different thing they do. City of Rensselaer, for example, has their own requirements that they require outside of their county. So you just need to check with your local area you're working in their jurisdiction. So the first thing you're going to want to do is check with them to see what are your requirements.
Mhm.
So that at that point, you want to see if you need a permit because certain projects over a certain dollar amount need a permit where some do not. Some projects, as far as putting in new panels, 100, 200 amp services, are requiring this inspection from that building inspector. They're going to come out, make sure you wired it correctly, make sure you have the correct number of ground rods. They want to make sure things are bonded where they're supposed to be. You have the correct clearances above roof lines and so on there. After that, they're going to issue a tag or a sticker says, yep, you're inspected. Then you can call your local utility company. They will come out, provide your meter so you can get your power energized at that point and hooked up, and then you have power to your building at that point.
Okay.
So the biggest thing is just check with your local authority, your jurisdiction, your authority there, and they're going to tell you what they need and what they want to see. So you don't miss anything where it's going to cost you more money in the long run because you forgot to put in that additional ground rod or you put the wrong size wire in, which would be a catastrophic thing because at that point now you're redoing the entire service. My recommendation is to hire somebody that works in that area, knows the jurisdiction,
Mhm.
and make sure the person that you do hire is licensed within that county. They have the proper insurance, and if they need a bond, they are bonded too, depending on where your jurisdiction is.
Okay. All right, Jake. Well, we covered a lot there. There's a lot of good information out there for people if they're wanting to plan their electric for their pole barns and whatnot. So I appreciate you stopping by and giving us all this knowledge about electrical. So hopefully the audience finds this helpful. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem.